Progressive Business Executive Education would like to welcome you to today's program, Critical AdWord Updates, Important Changes that Impact Your Strategy. My name is Beth and I will be your moderator for today's program. Today's event is 90 minutes in length. There will be a 75-minute presentation followed by a 15-minute question and answer session. The entire program is being recorded and can be purchased at an attendee discount. If you have any questions during the event, you can communicate with me through the chat box in the bottom left corner of your screen. We ask that if you lose the stream or have audio issues throughout this event, to please select the red X in the upper right-hand corner and refresh the interface. The materials packet can be found within the Documents portion of this window and includes a copy of the instructor's presentation. Please remember that it is a violation of our copyright to record the training. Now, I would like to introduce your speaker, Tina Arnaldi.
Okay, can everyone hear me? It looks like might have an issue with my mic. We're good? Okay. All right, so well, fortunately we didn't miss much. I'll just do my intro again here real quick. So thanks for letting me know that that wasn't on. Today's webinar on AdWords, there's a lot of material that I will be covering. And so I might be going kind of fast, but as you know, we have time at the end to do some Q&A, and I'm going to ask you some questions as we go through today as well. So I'm going to assume we're all good, and I'll go ahead and dive right in here. So this is my ambitious agenda today. Talk about account structure when it comes to AdWords, writing ads, going to give you some tips on writing some good ads, choosing your keywords, talk a little bit about ad extensions, ad scheduling, location bids, and then there's also, I want to talk specifically about some of the newest updates. What you will see, your packet will look a little bit differently because what I decided, and this literally was just this morning, I decided to put a little information in there about display ads and remarketing. So that was just last minute change on my part. So just want to let you know that that will look a little different from what you've received. And again, it was because I just added it this morning. So to get started, I want to just ask open-ended questions. And as I ask you to type these in the chat box, it's not going to see, you won't see this on the screen that I have up right now, but you will, I'll be able to monitor it and kind of respond back. But just so I know kind of in general the audience I'm talking to, if you were to rate your ability with AdWords from a 1 to 10, with 10 meaning that you are an expert in the area and 1 meaning that you've logged into AdWords once and that's your skill set, let me know what your number is. So just go ahead in the chat box now, somewhere from a 1 to 10. Okay, I see a few people there are a 1. And I also see somebody was not seeing this screen, so let me go ahead and make sure that we have my monitor up so there's no issues there, and I'll let people continue to just type that in for a minute or two. So, and you'll see the agenda screen there. And so we've got some 1s, let's see, a 6, a couple 4s. Okay, so that's good. It helps me know, again, my audience, and I do invite you to ask these questions at the end. And I'm going to be doing some checking in along the way too to make sure that you're getting what you need out of this for today. Okay, so the first thing I want to start with is the account structure. Very general information, but even if you have it that you've been doing AdWords for a while, this is still good to know because you may find that your account is one that needs to be structured a little bit better. So at the highest level we have, of course, an account, which I would say you think of that's your company. So your account is your company. And then when you're thinking about your ad campaigns, you generally want to do this in corresponding to sections of your website. So a retailer might have a campaign for women and they might have a campaign for men. And then under each campaign, you would have corresponding groups. So under your women campaign, you might have an ad group for clothing. You might have another ad group for shoes. And then you have your corresponding keywords and ad text. So this is just a good picture kind of to hold on to if you're looking at your own AdWords account and you're seeing that it's maybe doesn't seem to be structured quite right. The biggest takeaway here is to think about, again, structuring it in line with your website. Kind of think about your website navigation. So I want to go next, and again, just a lot of brief overview information here today, but I want to talk a little bit about writing ads. So once you get your ad campaign set up, some of the things that are good to know for when it comes time to write your ads, or you might find that you need to rewrite your ads, is you ideally want to have ads that have the content of your ads are also keywords. So again, I'll stick with a very general example, but if you have an AdWords ad and the heading of it is women's dresses, you would want to ideally also have at least one of your keywords be women's dresses or some variation of. So it's great to have when your ad, the content of your actual ad has the actual keywords, that are in that group. So Google will see that as being more relevant. Now another one, a long tail keyword generally would be the keywords that are, maybe 3 or more words. So a keyword of dresses or women's dresses is going to be very competitive. But if you had, let's say, a women's dresses for an outdoor party. I don't know. I don't work in the retail space, so I'm giving some creative or crazy examples here. But you can see that when you start having a longer term, it's going to be, it's going to be more relevant. You'll get fewer clicks, but you'll get the right type of people. When you are looking at in your ads, one of the things you might be doing too is seeing what your competitors are doing as far as how they create their ads. And that's a great way to do it, to get online, just look at Google, see what kind of advertisements that other people have written, but you don't want to be the same way as, write your ads the same way. You want to find something that's a little bit different about how you can write your ads so you'll stand out from them. What's very important is a call to action. The call to action can be a number of things. It can be learn more, buy one, get one, call us today, sign up for information. So think of it's an action term of something that you want someone to do as a result of reading your ad. And then the final thing, of course, and this can hurt you if you're not doing this, you want to make sure you're linking to a relevant page on your site. So if you have an ad for women's dresses and you go to the home page of the retail store that has women's clothes, men's clothes, furniture, etc., it's not considered relevant. You would want to have an ad for women's dresses, or is even more specific, for a women's spring dress should go directly to the page on your site that's about a women's spring dresses. So that's your landing page. You want to make sure, again, that's very relevant to what you're saying you're offering in your ad. So the questions that'll really help you as you're creating your ad, again, is what sets you apart? So if you look on the left column here, you'll see we won an award in 2013 where products are made in the USA. What is something about you that might be a little different from your competitors? This middle column is some of those details, right? So battery that lasts 8 hours, or, with a back to school program where it shows here evening classes. That's obviously going to appeal to adult learners who are also working while they're in school. And then again, this is those call to actions or what the customer should do next. And again, those are some more examples of what you might ask someone to do as a result of reading your ad. So here is one that shows some of the principles that I had mentioned. So this top one, the heading says Mixama Food Processors. So this one, I've never heard of it, but apparently that's a brand. So you've got the brand name and you've got the keyword food processor in the headline. And then in the first line, so you've got 2 lines to write your text. In the first line, what they did is they're telling you what you can do. You can prep food faster. And this, I think, was nicely written because in this second line, with such limited space, they have the offer and a call to action. So their offer is that they're giving 10% and they're also asking people to shop today. So that's great to be able to fit an offer and the call to action in that ad. The other thing to note is the custom display URL. And this is something for those of you who are newer to AdWords, this is something you may not be familiar with. I often find that with people who are starting out in an account. But the custom, you have the URL or the web page that people will go to, and that's a destination URL. So that's the actual web address that people will go to when they click on your ad. The display URL has to have part of your website name in it, so like this mixama.com, but then after that, the display can be anything you want. So in a way, it kind of lets you get some more, get some more keywords in there. So just if you remember, make a note that display and destination can be separate and take advantage of those characters that are available to you in that display URL. Next thing I want to talk about for a bit is keywords. So the keywords is really, this is the make it or break it for your campaign. So we'll talk about the different types and why you would or would not maybe use them. Okay, so the match type of broad. This is the one that's the most, I would say, it's broad, of course, in terms of how many people might search on it, and it's the one that can really get you in a lot of trouble. So it's showing on any kind of variation in any kind of order of that term. So if the keyword, I'm looking for a cruise, I get online and I search for the word, or I'm looking for an Alaska cruise. So the ad will show for if an exact search of Alaska cruise, a cruise in Alaska, Alaska cruise spelled wrong. So it's the reason I say the caution though is the broad is, let's say the keyword term, somebody got online and they said reviews of Alaska cruises. If you're a company selling Alaska cruises, you want people to come to you when they're ready to buy, not when they're just doing some reviewing and shopping around. So the word review could still trigger your ad because it's a broad term. It's saying we're going to allow for a lot of different variations. The phrase match is when you see the double quotes, it means that your words have to show in that specific order, but you could also have words before that and after that. So in this case, the keyword in here is Alaska cruise. So in my account, I have put in Alaska cruise as a keyword with double quotes. So if somebody searched a 10-day Alaska cruise, that would trigger my ad because it's still the Alaska cruise order. If they said Alaska cruise luxury, if they did that kind of search, that would also flag it because I still have Alaska cruise in there and then allows for additional variations. Okay, so then the exact one, this is saying that you can have maybe some variations, but you don't want words before or after that. So you'll see the keyword in this third column, in the yellow where it says exact. It's got a bracket, Alaska cruise, and then another bracket. So if someone were to search Alaska cruise, obviously that would trigger it. If they searched Alaskan cruises, that would also trigger it. But now if somebody did a search and my term is just that Alaska cruise, that exact match, and they searched 10-day Alaska cruise, this time it wouldn't trigger because I'm staying much tighter in my targeting. So I'm going to get less traffic, but the traffic I do get is probably going to be better. Okay, now the negative one, and I'm going to show a little bit more, and this is going to be another one. This is what I say one of your really key takeaways here today is the negative one is where you're going to find some of the quickest savings in your account. So when you have a negative term, it means you have a keyword in your account that starts with a minus sign, and it means that none of your ads can appear when that word is in the search query. So if I have a negative term, so I'll be the travel agent that's selling the Alaska cruises, and one of the negative terms in my account is cheap. I have minus cheap because I cater to a luxury audience. I am not doing any kind of budget cruises, so I don't want my ads to be displayed when people are looking for cheap cruises. So because I have the word cheap in there, if somebody searched Alaska cruise cheap, my ad won't trigger. Even though I have words in there about Alaska cruises, once the searcher uses the word cheap, that's an indicator that I do not want my ad to show. So I don't want to pay for people who are looking for budget cruises. So the negative keywords, again, this is the biggest place for you to save money with your negative keywords. And this is a resource. I'll show you again some more examples, and then the next one I'll show you a resource to to help you clean up your account with this. So these are some good examples. If you're a service provider, so if you're an accountant, and if you are, you're not doing any kind of hiring, you're a small accounting firm and you're offering some services. If people are looking for accounting jobs, accounting training, accounting classes, these are different terms that you might want to have in your account as a negative word, so your accounting firm is not flagged for people who are, again, looking for jobs or something else. Other frequently used ones, free is a common one. If somebody's looking for a definition or a how-to, review would be another good one. If you're not a review site, of course, you don't want to pay for people who are just looking for reviews. So this resource that you'll see here, this TechWise coming up on your screen, there we go. When you get a chance, look up this, look up this site. And I know that's a very long URL for you to type in. Honestly, if you just did TechWise negative keyword list, or even if you just did negative keyword list, this would probably be the top listing. What this is this person put together a list of words either, related to jobs and free services and etc. that a lot of AdWords campaign owners probably do not want in their account. So that's kind of one of my, I always say this is one of my big takeaways from today, is to check out this guy's list and use it in your account as negative keywords, so you're not triggering for these words that do not, that do not have any kind of impact for you. And if this is something that you want me to show you this in an account, I will keep going since I have a lot of material. But if you make a note for Q&A at the end, if somebody does want to see how I have this in an AdWords account, I'd be happy to go over that. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to talk about is keyword bid versus the search term. So those are two different things. So the keyword bid, if you look at this screen here, you're going to see kind of towards the middle bottom, there's a keyword is book critics. So book critics, that's the word that I'm saying I will pay for people to click, to type in book critics online. I want my ad to show. But there could be, so that's your keyword, but your search terms are what the person actually searched. So the reason I'm telling you this is really more about terminology. So when you look at keywords in your account, again, you're going to see a list of keywords, and those are all of the words that you bid on. And then when you look at the search terms, those will be the actual words that people typed that triggered your ad. So that's the difference. The keyword is what you're saying I'll pay for. The search term is what someone typed into google.com. So using an example from what I just showed you, my keyword might be Alaska cruise, and a phrase term, which allows for more words than just Alaska cruise. What somebody might have searched on was 10-day Alaska cruise. So I can see the actual words that people typed. When you do this search terms report, what you'll see here is exactly what I was just showing you, is these were the actual words that people typed that triggered ads for this book blogger account. So this book blog is just about book reviews. So seeing that somebody searched book reviews, reviews on books, read book reviews, those are all good terms. So, that's great. We want to keep those in the campaign. If you scroll all the way to the bottom, you'll see that this word cutting for stone book review triggered the ad. Now on this particular book site, that title of that book is not anywhere on the site. So the ad was triggered because they used the term book review. So by using excluded, that ensures that that's not going to trigger that again. So finding good keywords. So you can find your keywords, of course, when you're looking in your account and you're seeing what people are searching on. Those are ways for you to see your keywords. The other thing that you can do is use the keyword planner. And I'll come on over into my AdWords screen a minute here and show you that. So if you give me just a second. Okay. And as this is pulling up, I'll just tell you a little bit. This is an account for a nonprofit here. I live in the Charleston, South Carolina area, and it's a nonprofit that is a prayer ministry, so a Christian ministry. So I'll just kind of show you. So here we have the ads, and they've got just ads about prayer events, and it's a ministry in Charleston, South Carolina. So I can come up here to Tools, and then I can say Keyword Planner. And while that's opening, I'll open the web address here on a different site or different tab. Okay, so I can say let's search for some new keywords. So the option I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and put in the page, and it's going to just be the web URL for this organization. And I'm not going to change anything else now. Just in the interest of time, I'm going to just keep this very simple. Because what I'm doing when I say now get ideas, Google is scanning that website for what it thinks it's about. And this is not even close to what it's about. So this is an interesting example. So let me come back over here to the Grace Center. So, okay, I should not use their home page. Let me go ahead and switch that. Because what happened when it was looking at their home page, it was just pulling up these terms related to it being a 501c3. So I'm going to try this one. So this is their events page. So I'm going to change that. I'm going to say get some ideas. And while that's loading their events page, you can see they have prayer, teaching, evening worship. So there's some more words here that they can pick up probably. Okay, so here's one. Google is picking up some terms about prayer, about a prayer website, registration. So some of these terms are relevant, some are not. But this can be a good tool when you're trying to just kind of determine what other words that you might want to have in your account that you again come into tools and go to the keyword planner. Of course, you don't want to blindly add all of these words because a lot of them may not be relevant, but this is just one way if you're kind of stuck and you're not sure what to add into your account, this will help you get you moving. Next thing I want to talk about is ad extensions. And if I can just get a yes, no in the chat box, is anyone familiar with ad extensions? And I'll just watch that for a second if you just a yes or a no if you're familiar with them, and then I'll go ahead and talk about them a bit. Okay, so we're getting some yeses and nos. Okay. So here's an example. This I tend to use JCPenney a lot because they, whenever I'm looking for ads, they do a great job of using extensions. I will say though, I never click on somebody's ad. If I see somebody else's ad, I don't click on it because I don't want to generate, I don't want to generate additional costs for them. But let me walk you through what this ad, what each part of this ad. So the women's shoes, JCPenney, that's in their heading. Okay, their display URL is jcpenney.com women's shoes, and then their ad, because they have the top listing, their two lines are along the top. So save on women's shoes at JCPenney, free shipping every day at JCPenney. So those are their two lines. And again, because it's on that first page listing, it's just running across the top there. Now, there are a couple things to point out about this one. So they're doing a great job of using extensions in their ads. The save with coupons and earn reward points, those are call out extensions. So a call out extension allows you to highlight some other features of your product or service, but it doesn't take you anywhere. They're just saying you can save with coupons and earn reward points. So it essentially, what's great about the call out extension is it lets you extend, you have more room to display your ad. The site links extension, where you see women's flats, women's boots, pumps and heels, sandals, and flip-flops. Those are site links. They are ways for you to include other web addresses in your ad. So when you click on those, you're taken directly to flats or directly to flip-flops. So it's just, again, it's a way for you to extend the reach of your ad. And it would be the same cost in terms of the click if they click on the extension or they click on the main part of the ad. You can see JCPenney is also using the call and the location extension. So call, you see their phone number there, an 843-766 number, and then the address, Sam Rittenberg Boulevard. So they're doing a great job as far as using the extensions of their ads. So if you don't think you're already doing that, you definitely want to consider adding that into your account. Okay, and this again, this just shows you the tab in your account. So if you're in an account, for those of you who have not used it, or if for those of you who are familiar and you haven't seen it the last time you logged in, along the top here, if you don't see that Add Extensions tab, all the way to the right, there's in the red box, there's this little drop down that you can click in there and make sure that you're able to see all of the tabs that you want to see in your account. So that's just if you don't see the add extensions, look over to that right to see if you might need to add the tab. Okay, ad scheduling. And again, just another yes or no. Anybody here using ad scheduling? I'll just watch the chat box for a second. Yeah, and this isn't necessarily relevant to all businesses. Okay, so we got about half and half of the yes and no. The reasons that you might want to use ad scheduling is if somebody, people are bored, at night, or they're having trouble sleeping and they get online and they're just, surfing the internet, not really with a goal in mind. They may not necessarily be customers. Now, if they're impulse shoppers, that's great. But if you find that people coming to your site at night are, just bored, can't sleep, insomniacs, then you probably don't want to have your ad showing during these late hours at night, because if they're not buying. If you are traditional 9 to 5, then maybe you only want your ad to show. So if you have the type of business where it's mostly a service business and you traditionally are there from 9 to 5 and your business is one where people are generally calling you, they wouldn't be buying or doing anything online, maybe you'll find the best use of your money is just running it during this 9 to 5 time. Another case is if you have a restaurant and it's only open for breakfast, then you might want to have an ad and you get a lot of, walk-in traffic. Maybe you'd want to run an ad from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m., just something like that to get the right kind of traffic. If you're thinking, well, maybe this is right for us, maybe not. If you go into your dimensions tab, and that's the tabs where you see your campaign, keywords, ad extensions, you look at your dimensions tab and your day and your time, you can kind of break that down to see who is when people are on your site. And then if this is something that you do want to change, you can do campaign settings ad schedule. So let me take just a minute and let me just show you where those two things are. So I'll just stay in this group. And this one, since this is a nonprofit account, for those of you who may not know that nonprofits do not have to pay for AdWords. They can get a free account through Google Ad Grants. So that's just something to keep in mind. So I'm on the Dimensions tab and I'm looking at the view. And then I can, of course, look at the day of the week or the hour of the day. So I can see what kind of activity I have to determine if ad scheduling makes sense. If I decide that ad scheduling does make sense, this is here in my settings, and you'll see when you come all the way down here. So again, I did that pretty quickly, but I'm in a campaign, I'm on settings, and I scroll down here to the bottom. And right now I'm doing all days and hours. Again, since this is a nonprofit account, I say it's not real money. They're not paying to have the account, so let it run all the time. But this is where you can set your schedule. Maybe you have a business when you just want it to be 9 to 5 Monday through Friday and not run it all on Saturdays. So those are just some things to consider, again, depending on your specific business model. And here, the screenshot, just so when you're looking at this later, just so you remember how it got to there, the dimensions, and then we looked at the view. And then you can also look at your conversions. You know, does my nighttime traffic convert, meaning they make a purchase, or are they just surfing around the internet? And then again, here for reference, the settings. And then in the ad schedule is where you can set your schedule. And you can always change that later on. So if you're finding that it's your purchases or your new customer acquisition has declined since you put on an ad schedule, you can always easily remove that later on. Okay, location bid adjustments. This is another feature where you want to think about where do adjustments. This is another feature where you want to think about where do your buyers live, right? So not people who are visiting your site, but by buyers. Now, when I say buyer, I don't just mean e-commerce. You know, I would say customers, somebody who's going to engage in your services. And you may even find that you would want to use a location adjustment for a specific region. You know, even if you're a national brand, you might have reasons for wanting to target and, you know, put a little bit more money in one area versus the other. Again, the easiest thing to do is if you're a national company to just let it run, you know, throughout the United States and see, you know, and then look for differences later on. So this is a feature, especially for those of you today who are newer to this, is maybe down the road you might want to do. And you can also, if you want to learn more about who's coming, this is still in the Dimensions tab, but then you would go in your view, under your Dimensions tab, you would choose Geographic, and that's where you would have the opportunity to see where people are coming from to, you know, as a result of your ads. Okay, another question to throw out there, just a yes or no. Is anybody doing ads on the display network? You know, the main one on Google.com is the search network. You know, Google.com, which would be, could include like Google Maps or other Google partners. Display is the content network. So we're seeing a yes and a no. Okay, talk a little bit about some opportunities there on the display network. I really happen to like this one a lot because I find that the costs are they're less expensive. So while you might not get as much traffic that's going to convert immediately, if you have to do some branding, you're working to get your name out there, I think that can be extremely helpful. So with the display network, you can target based on topics. So if there's a site that's about, we'll just say about skateboarding, right? And that's what you sell. You have a company, you make and sell skateboards, and there's some websites out there that just talk about, you know, people, you know, talk about techniques or competitions or anything around that. You can choose to do this based on a topic. You can have an interest. So if I am interested based on my browsing habits, Google finds that I'm interested in something. It may, you know, you can display an ad based on the fact that my browsing habits show I'm interested and not necessarily the specific topic of the site. You can do keywords. So I generally don't use this one. I find this one's a little too loose. So if there's a website and I want say that I want to do a keyword for, you know, I say I want to match sites that have Italian restaurant as a keyword. Well, there's some sites out there that might be total junk, but they have that word in there somewhere, you know, so Google could say it's eligible to show, but it's a kind of a junky site and it's really not so much about restaurants. So just a little bit of caution with that one. What I really like is the placements and the remarketing. So the placements are when you can choose which websites you want your ad to appear on. And then the remarketing is when you are showing your ads to people who have previously visited your site. So the display planner can be very helpful if you're just getting started and you're not sure, you know, what kind of site you might even want to show on. So what I did here, just a screenshot with the display planner, is I said this is for people who are interested in books. So they've got some kind of book interest. And the website that I'm going to promote is books.tinaarnoldi.com. So I put this on here and I say, okay, Google, give me some ideas where I can show this website for people who happen to like books and literature. So, and again, I can get into that display planner for you too. The text ads, well, actually, you know what? Let me go ahead. Let me back up. I will do the display planner now a minute, and then we'll come back to the ad types. So I'll come back over here. And this is in Tools. So if you see the top of my screen, I went to Tools and I went to Display Planner. We'll give that a minute to load. And we'll say, we'll go with the example that's in your slides. So somebody who's into books and literature. In the landing page, I will just put the main page, which isn't always the best practice. But what I'm doing is I'm saying, all right, Google, tell me some sites where I might want to put an ad about these books. So I say get placement ideas and let this search for a minute. Okay, so along the bottom here, these are sites that Google's saying, you know, these are places where you might want to place an ad. So I can look at some of them and see that they're not immediately not relevant. Others I know are good ones. So I'll give you this one as an example. Goodreads.com is just a site for book lovers, right? So just a community for people who love to read and share book ideas. So this would actually be a really good place to put a display ad. The lots of green here means that Google agrees, says, yeah, this is probably a very relevant site. I can probably get a click for under $1, you know, from 0 to $1. And, you know, we think that 10 to 15 million people a week could see this ad. So that's a great way so I can get some ideas. Others, I might want to look up these sites just to see if they really are relevant. As I scroll down, you see we go to the yellow, and let's see if we get some red here, or if it's going to just be yellow. No, I guess we're just going to get yellow. So, okay, so Google's saying there's, you know, if you're all familiar with these dummy sites, dummies, you know, the series of books. Okay, this one, Online Book Club, that might be a good one. Google doesn't think it's very relevant, but if I look at it and think it's relevant, I can choose to add it. So that's a little bit the display network on how you can do those placements, which is the piece that I really like. When you're doing ads on the display network, another advantage I think of it is on the Google.com network, the search network. Of course, you are just showing those text ads. When you're on the display network, you can do text, you can do image, you can do video. So you can be a lot more creative and show a number of different types of ads when you're on the display network. So again, this screenshot for your reference, what I did is I had the topic, the landing page, and then some suggested sites. So if you want to play with the display network, this will kind of just help you remember what I had walked you through. Next I'm going to do is want to talk specifically about image ads for just a couple minutes. Now, of course, an image ad isn't something that you're going to see on Google. It would be on one of the content sites. To do that, when you go to create an ad, you would, in your ad tab, you see this red box that says add, and you say new image ad. So Google knows now I'm going to create an image ad. If you do not have somebody on your staff who has graphic design skills, or you don't outsource to anybody who has graphic design skills, what you can do is you can say to Google, okay, scan the ad, or excuse me, scan the page and create an image ad for me based on what you're seeing on this page. So this is just a screenshot, you know, said, okay, look at this book site and see if you can give Google, let me see if you can automatically create a good ad for me. And this is what it came up with. So these are some samples. They're not bad. The image is horrible, you know, because it was just a weird image from one book. So I would want to change the image. But it's got, you know, book reviews, and it's saying, you know, read reviews of new nonfiction and business books. So the way I got this is by doing the scan. So I didn't do anything to create an ad. Google's saying, here, this is what we think will work for your ads, and we're going to go ahead and, you know, offer you these ideas. So I'll show you. Let's come back into I'm going to come into another one and show you here a minute. So I'm going to just pull up this other one and say I want to create an image ad. So this is just walking through what you saw on the slides. So I want to create an image ad, and I want to get ad ideas from this specific website. Oh, is this not going to work today? Let's see. I have that every once in a while with the image thing. It will, okay, there we go. It was just taking a minute. Okay, so it's getting ads from this site. And so I just say, okay, go ahead and create an ad. You can see it's scanning the site. It's going to try to pull the pictures and pull some of the content. And then this is what Google comes up with. So not bad, not great. You can see the different shades of blue, you know, are somewhat problematic. You know, like these aren't bad because they're in the same shade. This one's a little off. This one's terrible. So, and again, I don't have an eye for design, but some of these are ones that I might be able to, you know, be able to work with. And again, all I did here is I was using the image that I said create an ad, image ad, and then scanned my site. So for your image ads, you know, you still have these tips that, you know, are just as important when you're going to do a text ad, is you still want to have a call to action. So whether it's you're going to do an image like I showed you, or even if you were to do a video ad, you want to have a very clear call to action. Are they still going to buy, shop, learn, call? You know, so that doesn't change. You want to have good, high quality images. As you saw here, I go back a slide. Give this a second to load. There we go. So these are not good images. So these are definitely ones that you would want to trade out and find different images for your image ad. You want to make sure that you can read the text easily. You don't have a whole lot of text space to use, but just make sure it's legible. Any text on your images, you want to make sure that's very clear. And then experiment a little bit with some promotions and coupons and, you know, see how you can get people's interest. Okay, remarketing. Anybody using remarketing? I'll just watch for a second for yes or no if anybody is using remarketing. Okay, see one so far, a couple no's. Okay. Okay, great. So I'll go over this, some reasons where you might want to use it. Excuse me. With remarketing, some cases where you may want to use it is if you do have a site where people purchase things and you're seeing a pretty high abandonment rate. So, you know, they fill out their cart and then they leave, you know, without making a purchase. You might want to go after them. I tend to use it quite a bit just for people who have visited a site before, whether they visited the site or a specific section of the site, because that indicates to me that they have some kind of interest in the product or service, and it's probably worth following them around and, you know, seeing if they're still interested or if I can, you know, connect with them about what they're looking for. The pros and cons, there are definitely some lower costs. You know, I've done some remarketing and have some really low costs, which I think is great if you have a small budget. You can personalize it. So again, back to the retail of men's and women's clothes. If I show an ad for my retail company, I can have an ad catered to men for people who have visited the men's section of my site. You know, so I'm getting specific, not people who are just looking for a retail clothing line, but people who are specifically looking for men, women, children's, etc. And again, it reminds people you're there. So kind of a branding thing, you know, hey, we're still here and we'd still love to help you spend your money. So that's some of the pros. Some of the cons, it can definitely be a little creepy. I've had it before where I've, you know, have had ads where I just feel like they're following me a little too much and it's time to break up and they just won't go away. So that's why I think it's a good idea to cap it. So I will only do it, you know, a certain number of times per day or week. You have to kind of keep it fresh. If someone is continuing to see the same ad all the time, they're eventually going to just kind of numb out. You know, they're not going to pay attention to it anymore. And if you're not careful, you might be trying to sell something to someone who just bought it, you know, so just to be careful. I mean, so the big thing here, I think probably the biggest thing is just using that frequency capping. So somebody's not seeing it 100 times a day. To build your remarketing list, you would go into your shared library and your audiences and your view. So I'll come over here to come to the campaigns. If you look over here on the left side of my screen, this was closed. See if I come over here to the right, that left column closes. I can click that to open that up and keep that open. Hang on, let me keep this open. Okay, and then in my shared library, and then audiences is where you can do your remarketing. You can also do this from your Google Analytics account, but this is where you can say, I want to have a list for everybody who visited a certain page or who visited a site in general, and then that's where you would be able to remarket to that group. So again, it's in your shared library, in your audiences, as you see here, and then you view to build your list. Okay, so we've got about half hour yet that I'm going to talk about updates for this year, and then before we get into the Q&A. So before we talk about updates, this is kind of the way I think through the ads, for people who are getting started, and I know a couple of you are new to this today, is when you're just getting started, think about these three things. Is the campaign structure, does it match your site? Meaning, does it correspond to the navigation of your site? Do you have good ads? And what is a good ad? Remember, it's using those keywords in it, calling to action, being set apart from your competitors. And then your keywords, they're very relevant. So instead of just saying shoes, it would be children's casual shoes, right? That would be a very relevant and more of a long tail term. So once you're kind of feeling good about that, then you definitely want to have your ad extensions. That's a must because Google has actually said that they do find that makes ads more relevant. So an ad extension, make sure you get those in there. And then the ad scheduling, location scheduling is maybe. I honestly don't have accounts right now where I'm using either of those features, but maybe something to consider. And then maybe not necessarily advanced, but additional steps is to spend some time on the display network and try some image ads, see if you can get your audience's attention that way. And then, of course, the remarketing, and again, to be cautious with that. So I call this the 2016 updates, but I also have some late 2015. So the last time I did this talk for this group for PB webinars was in, let's see, I did something in October, I believe, or September of last year. So that's why I have some of these late 2015 updates, and then one so far for this year. One thing I will say is when Google gives us something, we don't necessarily need to use it. So I say that because there's some features in here that I'm still kind of playing around with myself, but I want to at least let you know what's available. So especially for those of you who are new to, I don't want you to feel overwhelmed like, oh, we've got to apply all of these things now too. But this is just so you know of things and, the last 6 months that have, have now been made available with AdWords. Okay, so this first one is custom columns. So the custom columns is Google's way. They're saying, if you need more metrics than what we already offer, you can create a custom column. So I'll go ahead over into the account. This is easiest to just explain it to you this way. So let me go into the campaign. Go ahead and close that. And columns, now you can see, obviously, look, there's a lot here. We've got a lot of information available. So, but there may be a case where you don't have a column that you want. So we're going to go ahead and under there, I'm going to say modify column. And then all the way, let's see, can I not do it? Let me come back over to this account. No, okay. Sorry, let me come over one tab more. Columns, modify columns. There we go. Okay, so you have to be on the campaign or ad group tab. I just realized I had been on the ad tab. So on ad groups and I said columns, and then to the bottom here I see custom columns. So from here is where you can go ahead and decide what kind of column you want. So I might want to say, gave the example of mobile clicks. So I'll say mobile share of clicks, and I can describe it further if I want. And so I'll say so calculates mobile clicks divided by total clicks. Okay, so now I've got that description, and then now I've decided what I want to show. So I can say I'm going to select the metric of the click, and when it comes to clicks, I'm going to dig in here further and say I want to do that specifically for mobile devices. So I've created a new column where I'm going to say clicks, and I'm going to say clicks for these mobile devices. Okay. And then I'm going to divide it, and I'm going to choose the metric again of clicks. So now I've said, again, what I want to see is how much mobile is responsible for these clicks. When I do save, I now have this new column, mobile share of clicks. So let me just go ahead and say apply. And what this is telling me is obviously very small for this specific ad group. The mobile share of clicks, right? You see my description is obviously very, very, very small. So not a whole lot of mobile activity there. So again, this is one like I said, Google gives us features. It doesn't mean you have to use it. So this is one that I've kind of played around with, but I have found that I've been able to really get everything I need with the built-in columns. So this is, again, sometimes it gives us a little bit too much, but if you are in an industry and mobile is very important to you, that example that I just showed, that might be something that you do want to know, is you want to be able to look specifically at your mobile clicks. Okay, the next thing I want to show you is the campaign drafts. You're going to see this, I'll show you in just a moment, in the top right of your campaign. This was I'm trying to remember if this was end of last year, beginning of next, or beginning of this year. See, my head's going in different directions here today. So was it the end of 2015 or early 2016? I'm not sure, but it was a fairly new feature. This might be helpful if you work with a team on your ad campaign, that you can create a draft campaign. And so basically you're not running it yet, you're just setting it up so someone can look at it for you. So if you're, I'm in this campaign, and as soon as I get into this campaign, if you look over here on the right, you see this little drafts button. And so that's a newer feature. And when I say to create new, what I'm doing, I'm gonna, let's see, I'll just call this test because I don't want to mess anything up in this account. So draft is saying you're getting ready to make some changes. So you can create a draft. So you're not actually doing anything, you're not actually spending any of your budget yet, but you have an idea for a campaign that you want to do, and you want to have someone look it over for you. You know what? I apologize. I can't do it for this account because this is my nonprofit account. Let me come back over to this one and see if it'll let me do it on this one. Let me try one more. I try to be careful about which client accounts I show. I always make sure I get somebody's permission first. So let's try this one again. You won't mind? So as you saw that I wasn't, while this is pulling up, I wasn't able to do this over here with the nonprofit account. The nonprofit account, of course, it's great to not have to pay for your clicks, but you are going to have some limitations on what you're able to do with it. Well, we'll see if this is going to take too long to load, but while this is loading, so I wanted to show it to you. Let me just kind of keep talking through what you would do with a draft campaign. So your draft campaign, again, you're not posting the changes. You're just trying to experiment with, some bidding or campaign settings to get some ideas. Maybe you need some approval from someone. Once you do that, they can come in, they can see your draft. So they'll see that there's a campaign in the account that's set as a draft. Let's see, this is still loading, so I might not be able to show you through the whole thing, but let me just come back over here while that's thinking. and again show that at least you can get in here from the drafts. But I'm still going to hold out on hope that this will load. Once you do a draft and someone looks at it, then you can just say, go ahead and, I just want to apply it. So it's just basically a way of, like, you have a draft with any kind of apply it. So it's just basically a way of, like, you have a draft with any kind of document, a way to, before you make a change, maybe have somebody look over your shoulder. And I apologize, this is taking too long to load. I will keep going. But again, the draft campaign, and that's another feature I just haven't been using yet, because what I like to do is I'll create a campaign, and if I'm not ready to run it yet, I'll pause it. So I think that kind of does the same thing as a draft. As long as you remember to pause it, you're not incurring costs yet, and then you can, get somebody to look it over for you before you run it. So think of a campaign draft. Maybe the simplest way is that it's very much like a paused campaign. Okay, Adwords Editor. I did pull this up so I can show it to you. The Adwords Editor is a way for you to work on your campaigns offline. So that can be kind of a nice feature if you want to download it and then be able to make your changes and then upload it. So Adwords Editor isn't new. This 11.3 is the newest version though. So the newest things are you can look at your video campaigns and your call out extensions in it. So this is my AdWords editor. I pulled it up earlier this morning, so I wouldn't have to make for it to load. And what you'll see over here on the left side in this account, you can see the site links, the call extensions, the call out extensions. And this is just a newer feature that you're able to add these in here that you weren't able to do with previous versions. You can also do your video ads in here. For this particular account I'm showing you, I don't have video ads, but this is new to AdWords Editor to be able to look at your video ads. The reason you would care about that is you want to, if you're looking at your campaign with a holistic view, our video ads, text, image, etc., we want to just know how they're all doing. It's nice to look at it in this interface rather than in AdWords where you're kind of clicking back and forth. So this is just, again, new. This is just new for people who are using AdWords Editor, that there are some new features in there. Okay, these next two I do like, and I know I can be critical of some of the things that Google has to offer us, but the one that what they call customer match is email, basically email targeting. So what you're doing with customer match is you're taking an email list and you're creating a list in AdWords by uploading email addresses you already have. So once you upload these email addresses, you can target specifically to those people either on search, google.com, on Gmail, or on YouTube campaigns. So there are some challenges here. It's supposed to be emails that you yourself obtained, either somebody filled out a form or downloaded a white paper. So that's where, it has to be something that you own. Once you do it, I'll just kind of talk you through it here and then I'll show you, but you're going to also find this in the shared library of AdWords under audiences in remarketing. And what I'll show you is once you get in there, then what you can, if you have a CSV file, you can upload your customer emails, and then Google will try to match those emails to people who are surfing online. So this is really kind of a whole new level of creepiness, that you can really target people. The nice thing about it is it could be, you choose, how far back you want to go as far as how long somebody's been a member of your email list. If you go way back, you may find that you're getting the attention of people who kind of lost interest in your product, way back when. You're maybe getting them back again. Or you could be somebody who really does like your product or service and meant to buy from you, and then they kind of forgot about you, and so you're ready to, target that group specifically. So I think it's something, and again, I'll show it to you in an account here briefly, but I do think it's something that you may want to explore because you're targeting people who have a really good chance of converting. If they provided their email address to download your white paper, you already know that they have some interest in what you have to offer. And just curious as I go over here, if I can just see a yes or no, has anyone here heard of Customer Match? I'm curious how new this is to people. So just a yes or no if you've heard about this Customer Match option while I'm pulling up the next screen. Okay, okay. Oh, we do have someone who has. Okay, most of you have not. I see one person has. So come into the shared library. And again, I'm looking at audiences, and this is one that I was kind of playing around with. But what you would do is when you're creating your remarketing list, look at this option here. For those of you who are not familiar with it, you do a new remarketing list and you would do customer emails. And then just name it something that makes sense to you. I always discourage people, don't name it email list, because you're going to forget down the road. You're going to upload customer email lists. Easiest thing to do is to just have this option to choose your CSV file that has all of their names in there, how far back you want to go. So how long somebody is going to stay on your list. You always use these little question marks here in Google if you need a hint, and then you upload it, and then you go ahead and you're ready to go, and you can start showing ads to those people. So it could be really, just some other ways that you might want to use this. So again, we've got remarketing lists, customer emails. Some other things to do is you could have it just for the people who downloaded a specific white paper. So you could create an ad, for that targeted audience. Could be subscribers to your email newsletter. So those are people who, again, they're somewhat interested. It could be people who haven't quite committed to you yet. So if you offered a free event and 1,000 people signed up for it, then you can have a different type of ad to those 1,000 people to try to get them to one of your paid events. You might want to do this seasonally. If you have a particular industry that buys from you every June before their fiscal year budget runs out, well, then maybe you want to do an ad to that group in March, get them beforehand. Let's see what else. It could be your offline customers. Somebody comes to an event, and when they sign in, they offer up their email address, so you're getting their attention. The similar products, somebody who's already purchased product line A, you might want to target to them for product line B. So there's really a lot of creative things you can do. Again, you have to be careful because it's supposed to be lists that your business owns, meaning that you collected the email, from your website, or they registered with you, or they signed up at your store. So this is one I'm going to be very interested in watching because I think it's going to get abused like crazy. I think people are going to be buying lists, or they're going to use all their target to unsubscribers, or I don't know. I'm very curious to see where this one is going to go because I think it is pretty shady. I mean, it's neat to have another way to target people, but I think there's some potential for problems there. Another one still in the world here is specifically doing Gmail ads. So if you're a Gmail user, you're familiar with you can have a promotions tab in your Gmail account. So that's when Google introduced the promotions tab. It was trying to isolate these promotions and marketing offers. So these ads in Gmail have been available for AdWords advertisers for a while. So there were already ads in Gmail, but the difference is what I've noted here is that now Google removed the standard text ads from Gmail, and now they're showing fewer high quality ones. So again, I'll get in here in a minute and show this to you in an account. So if you're not using it, you would do this in a display campaign. I'll show you how to create an ad in Gmail format, and you'll see a few different options. So you don't necessarily need technical skills to do this in here. So let me come back into this one to the campaign. And let's see. While this is loading, so the different formats, there we go. Okay, so I go into my ad gallery. And you'll see in your ad gallery, you come over here to your Gmail ad. So I'll just kind of highlight these different options in here. So these first few are very simple. Let's see if no, it doesn't give me the fuller description when I hover, but just very basic that you have an image, right? So think of this one over here on the left as kind of like a banner ad with one landing page, so it's the most simple one. The next one here, this single promotion. So you would have an image, your ad copy, and then your call to action button. This multi-product one or catalog one too can be a little more interesting because then you'll have you'll have multiple images. So it can be like a catalog of things for people to be able to view. So you're not just promoting one thing. And then this is the custom one. So I say this one all the way over here is the one for people you have an in-house designer. So it does let you be a lot more creative and you can have a richer experience for users, but it's not one that the everyday user, people like myself who aren't designers, wouldn't necessarily be able to create. If you do have a team here that could do a custom HTML ad, and you're interested in doing some of this Gmail advertising, I would still play around with some of these other options, so just to see how they perform. So regardless of which one of these you use, if you do want to advertise in Gmail, so what people would see in Gmail is they would see just a very collapsed version of the ad, and then they can click on it to explore it. So they see a bigger ad, and then they can click out, to your website. So this is one that I've just actually started testing in an account, and it's very inexpensive. There's been some really very cheap clicks. I'm not seeing people converting with it yet, so I'm not sure if this is maybe going to just be a good brand one. So we'll see. If you are interested in this and you're kind of not sure where to start as far as the copy for these ads, what I do suggest to people is to look back at some of your previous email campaigns, whether it was MailChimp or Constant Contact, and, look at the click data, see which campaigns have done well, and see if you can use some of that same kind of terminology in your Gmail ad. So whether you're looking at the content or the subject lines or, whatever it is that might have performed well in the past in an email marketing campaign, you might find is also going to do well in a Gmail campaign. So that's worth playing around with. Okay, so viewable display ads. So I've got just a couple more points here before we go over to do some Q&A. So viewable display ads. So what does this viewable mean? So in the past with the display ads, and again, these are the ads that might show up on about.com, weather.com. This is when I'm talking about that display or content network. A lot of the times the ads weren't viewable because they were below the fold, so people would have to either scroll down to see them or they were only in a background tab that even though the ad was being displayed, it wasn't actually viewable. So now what this means is viewable is that at least half of the ad has to appear within the user's vision of the screen. So let's say, for example, what you see here is a website page. We'll pretend that below the blue footer on this slide, there's an ad. So now as a user, if I don't scroll down to see the ad below the blue footer, the advertiser won't get charged because it wasn't considered viewable. So now viewable means that at least half of the ad appears on the screen. So this is what it means with viewable. So the reason this matters too is that with frequency capping, I mentioned frequency capping when I talked about how remarketing can be creepy, that you want to limit how many times you show an ad, is that now the frequency capping is a little more of a real number, because in the past, even when there wasn't a viewable impression, so like here the ad only showed below the blue line, that was still being counted as a view. So now the frequency cap means that the ad really did, at least half of the ad did show on the screen. So that is going to help people have better control over how much their ads really are genuinely viewable to users. So, and some of the additional metrics you'll have now is you'll see, how many were actually viewable, the percentage of your impressions that are viewable, the percentage of the viewable ads that were clicked. So it's just going to give you better data as far as which placements and which ads are really driving the best campaign performance. So this is a good feature to know that this is how things are happening now on the display network. Just a couple other points I'm going to mention briefly, the cross-device conversions. I didn't have an account that I could show you this. Again, I get permission from clients before I show their accounts, and I didn't have one with good data that I can show. So I wanted to include the screenshot so you can view it in your own. So this is something you can see at the keyword data, and you're in your columns conversions cross device. This is so if you can see somebody who maybe started their journey on your site, they were on your website and then their mobile device, then their iPad. So if it's important for you to know how people are converting on different devices. Automated bid strategies, just honoring time, I have 2 minutes, so I'm going to just say this very quickly. The automated bid strategies, if you want to make a note, these are in the shared library. As I mentioned, you had a number of those things. Let's come back over here, just show you very quickly. So my shared library, you can tell you'll be spending some time in here is audiences, is when we looked at the remarketing and the customer match, and then the bid strategies. So the bid strategies are just different ways you can automate your bids, saying I want to bid on getting the most clicks. I am willing to have this much bid to always be on the top page. I'm willing, so you're deciding what's important to your strategy. Do you always want to be on the first page? Do you always want to get the most number of clicks regardless of where you are? And then you can set up this strategy so Google will automate some of that for you. So if you want to explore that further, just remember this is called an automated bid strategy. And as you reference these slides as you're working on your account, these are the different options you have. And this one too, I'm going to just mention very briefly, the portfolio bid strategy. This is something newer in AdWords, and it's just if you have a strategy where you say, I always want to be on the first page, I always want to rank on the first page, or I always want to rank on the top results of a portfolio bid strategy is just supposed to be a way to make it easier for you to change your bids across all of your campaigns, ad groups, and keywords at the same time, rather than manually doing a bid strategy for each part of your account. Okay, the statuses, I will skip over that because we're almost to 2:15, but this is what this does is it's telling you once you apply a bid strategy, Google will say, okay, I'm learning how to best apply this strategy. As you see in this top one, Google says, I'm learning, give me 6 more days to learn this. The bottom one is saying, based on your bid strategy, we have some limitations. Because of your maximum bid limit, you're not getting some impressions or some of your keywords aren't being shown. So this is where the bid strategy status, and this is newer, and again, I say newer in the last 6 months, that you can see how your automated bid strategies are doing. So that's another newer feature to explore. Okay, so we are at 2:15. One thing I will mention just very briefly, as a Google partner, I do receive AdWords vouchers that I can give to people. I offer that to people who come to any of the progressive business education seminars. If you are interested and you email me, I will gladly send a voucher to you. Again, this is just for you attending today. There's no catch. There's no no obligation. I'm not ever going to email you again unless you request that I do. So you don't have to work with me. But if you do have a brand new account or you're getting ready to launch an account, if you send me an email, again, I'm happy for you to use that as you play along. And again, there's no connection, or excuse me, no conditions other than what Google has affiliated with their vouchers. So now that we are at 2:16, I went over 1 minute, but I will go ahead and I'm going to turn this over to Beth, and she will go ahead and take your questions.
Thank you, Tina. I would now like to take your questions. If you have a question, please type it into the chat box in the bottom left corner of your screen. The first question asks, what's the best thing we can do to save money on our account?
The absolute first thing I would do is go and look at that negative keyword list. And actually, let's see if I can just pull that up here a minute while the other questions are coming in. Yeah, there we go. Is to go over to this page that or this site that I referenced and look at these negative keywords where we have, obviously ones about porn. I would definitely remove those unless that's your business and that's not something I want to know. But so that's a list of these up here. Employment, unless you're monster.com, you probably don't want to pay for it. Education, research, et cetera, et cetera. So I would say go in there, get that negative keyword list. And I did mention I would show that to you briefly. This too is in your shared library, your campaign negative keywords. And this is where you can create a list and apply it to all of your campaigns. So you're not paying for those types of clicks.
Thanks, Tina. The next question asks, is it better to use Search Network and Display Network together or use separately?
Oh, that's a good question. And Google's party line is they recommend that you use it together so they can kind of optimize where they think you need to spend your money. So their party line is they will say use search with display. What I prefer to do is I prefer to separate them out because I see that people on the search network, if I'm going to google.com, I'm probably specifically looking for something. If I'm on the display network, I'm on, CNN or Weather or People Magazine or, I don't know, just some other kind of website. I'm maybe just kind of killing time or surfing around and not really have an intent to buy. So the display can be good for maybe doing some more branding. So it's more, I personally, and I know other marketers do agree with this, that you have a different type of audience on search than you do have on display. So yes, I do recommend separating those out.
Thanks, Tina. When you send a campaign using email targeting, is it a bad idea to target email addresses of customers who have unsubscribed from promotional emails?
That is a good question, and that one I would say I'm not sure yet, and you might want to do a little research on that first because I think the technical answer is that you're not supposed to do that once they've unsubscribed. I I don't think you are, but I think people are doing that anyway. So that's kind of a tough one to answer because you might try it and you might get busted by Google. But I would search around a little bit on that one first just to be sure. It's one thing to be busted by Google. They say, hey, we're going to disapprove this ad, but you don't ever want to have your account shut down or anything. So I hesitate on that one, but do a little more surfing around and see what others have done before you make a decision for sure on that one.
Should we ever stop running a campaign?
Yes, and that's where I say it's an advantage for me that I don't actually work for Google because I can give my opinions that are not in their support files. I'm a big fan of Google Analytics and I do some training on that topic as well. And what I tell people to do who are using AdWords to make sure they're spending time in their Google Analytics account. And then what you're looking at in Google Analytics is you see how your AdWords campaign is doing compared to your social media or your organic search or your referral traffic. And if you find that, let's say for example, you're doing great on social media, you're getting a lot of really solid leads and some of them are converting and you find that your ad campaign, people are coming to the site and they leave right away, they don't actually make a purchase or indicate any interest, then it might be time to just turn your AdWords campaigns off for a while, and then maybe at a later date you'll want to try to figure out why they may not have done well. But yeah, definitely compare it to your other traffic sources, and then that way you can decide if it might be time to just turn it off.
Can I change a campaign from active back to draft?
No. So once you, and that's why I'm kind of on the fence still with that feature I showed you about draft. I haven't found that to be a great benefit yet, is that once if you do a draft campaign and your boss looks at it and then you make it an active campaign, you can't turn it back to draft, but what you can do is pause it. So again, for me, I haven't been using the draft feature. I just have, creating my campaigns, and then if I'm not ready to run them, maybe the product hasn't been offered yet, then I just pause them instead. But you would not be able to go back from active to draft.
Should all advertisers run ads on the display networks and search network?
Yeah, I think it is a good idea to do it on both search and display. I actually have one right now that is only on the display network. And let me go back to, let's see which account. So for this one, this is, I'm only doing display because this one is, very low budget, but you can see over here the average clicks are 19 cents. So again, I'm on the display network, so I'm getting a different type of audience. They may not necessarily be looking for this, this counseling group, but what it is doing is it's targeted very, very tightly to people in the Charleston, South Carolina area. And rather than paying, several $100s a week or more to advertise in the newspaper or other print media around here, this one I'm kind of using like print media. You know what I mean? So I'm saying, okay, so for 19 cents a click, people in town now know who this group is. So I'm a huge fan of it. And again, if you especially if you're in a very competitive industry and you find that your search terms are, 7, 8, 12, $18 a click, and I have seen them that high, then you might even want to do display only if you have to really watch your budget.
Is there a good rule of thumb for the frequency cap?
Yeah, I've been doing that at a frequency cap of 3. And I'm not sure where I pulled that number from. If it was, I'm trying to remember if I was talking to a fellow marketer who was doing the same thing, or I was, measuring my own irritation level. But I think I've seen people say like from 3 to 5, and that would actually be a good thing to test. That you can, if you're going to run it for a while, and just if you say a frequency cap of 3 for a week or a month, depending on what volume you get, and then another time maybe run it with a frequency cap of 5 and just see if there's any kind of difference. Maybe people did need to see it 5 times before they finally clicked, but I tend to go on the low end, and I might be a little too low on that. And Beth, I don't know if we lost you.
Yes, there
Beth,
are.
I can't hear
The
you
next
if there were
question
additional
asks, when
questions.
when users do searches on Google, does
Oh,
Google
okay,
show
great.
ads that contain the keywords users search on if those keywords are in the ad headline? I was told by the Google support line that Google does not show ads based on if the keywords are in the headline of the ad, only if the keywords are in the ad text.
Only if they are in the ad text. You know, I don't think that's accurate. Because what you can do, and this, could maybe be a topic for another time, is just you can do something that's called display, or I'm sorry, dynamic keyword insertion. So if I say um, counseling, what I'm doing right here in this headline is I'm saying take my keywords and put it directly into the headline. So it's the user's exact term. So that I'm going to have to look that information up myself too, because I have always been taught that it's, throughout your ad, it is looking for the appropriate keywords. So I honestly don't think that was good information that they gave you, but now that you mention it, I'm going to have to look that one up myself because I do think that's inaccurate, that the keywords you're looking in
Thanks,
multiple places
thanks,
for it.
Tina. The next question
So
asks,
that's
what are the
interesting.
benefits of using a broad match modifier keyword type over the phrase match keyword type? Could you provide a comparison of the two types and the advantages of using each?
Okay, so a broad versus, and that's good. Thank you. I didn't get into broad today. So, okay, so let's go with this one. So this is, sorry, my spelling's horrific here today. All right, so this top term, this is a broad match. When you see the plus sign, it means that when the user searches, they have to have the word Christian and the word counselor in their search. This phrase one, Christian counselor, means it has to be in that order, right? So Christian counselor in Charleston, and I'm not even going to bother counselor. All right, so those are the different things, as long as it says Christian and counselor. When you have the broad, this is any order, but I've got to have the word Christian and the word counselor. So I can say good counselors who are Christian. I can say lousy, and I know my spelling's wrong, but I'm not going to go back here. Lousy Christian counselor. Counselor at my Christian church. Okay, so you see what's happening here is these phrases will all trigger it because they've got the word Christian and they've got the word counselor, and there's no order requirement. Down here, when I have these these double quotes, there is a word order required. So that's the difference between the two. And I'm glad you mentioned that because I didn't say that today. But so this is I do, especially if it's a new industry and I'm not sure, or the client's like, we're not even sure how people think about us yet. That's when I might use a term like this broad match with this plus sign, because then I can get some really creative search query terms and learn how people think about the client. Okay, so I think we have time for one or two more questions.
Thanks, Tina. The next question asks, how has the removal of the sidebar ads affected campaigns overall? Less impressions, more cost, etc.
Let's see, the removal of the sidebar. Just want to see if make sure I understand. So whoever asked that question, please clarify. I'm getting this wrong. If you're saying that you have not seeing ads here on the right side, I do still see ads on the right side. Let me see if I can get another one. Gosh. It's just not going to trigger for me today. Yeah, you should be seeing them along the top, and let me just try another. Just trying to get a search where I can see them on the right. Yeah, I honestly don't know. I always know that in terms of, and I think the question was something about with the costs. It's going to continue to get more competitive, and obviously like these top three here, I'm not going to click on it, but these are going to be very expensive compared to, you still have these ads here on the bottom. These aren't going to be quite as expensive. And again, this is where you get into what I call the fold, where people are scrolling down and people are going to be less inclined to scale down. Or I'm sorry, scroll down. So again, it is going to be most expensive here. And as if you're not seeing as many ads being displayed in your industry, that's when I would definitely give some time into the remarketing, as well as looking at the display network. Find those relevant sites on the display network where you can do your advertising would be really important.
And the last question for today, is there a way for you to see if clicks are coming from display or search networks when running both?
Yes, well, I do it since I run them separately. Let's see if I can. Yeah, is that gonna, let me see if I can have a column. Yeah, so do you see over here on the right side for the person that asked that question, in the column, it didn't have that there by default, but I modified column and said which campaign so I could see display or search. If I come in here by ads, okay, so this one I did have the campaign type in here. Oh yeah, there we go, display ads. So if you're not seeing the specific network, I scroll over there, and you want to see the clicks for your ads or your keywords or your campaigns, come into your columns and look for information on the campaign type or campaign subtype.
That was the last question. If you did not have an opportunity to ask your question, please email it to bnovick, Novick, @pbp.com, and our customer relations specialist will be glad to respond. I'll now turn it back to you, Tina, for closing remarks.
Okay, great. Thanks, Beth. Yeah, the one takeaway, especially again from, I know several of you were new here today, to get that negative keyword list in your account, because you're going to find that you're saving money right away. And if you are on a small budget, especially to spend some time looking at that display network so you can get your brand name out there.
Thank you, Tina. Progressive Business Executive Education would like to thank you for attending today's webinar. If you would like to purchase a recording of this conference, you may do so by calling 800-964-6033 or by using the enclosed order form. We would also like to encourage you to complete and return the evaluation form to us. On behalf of Progressive Business Executive Education, I would like to thank you for attending our webinar. This concludes the program.